There we go.
Okay.
All right. Should be recording. So yeah, let's get started.
Right, let's get started.
All right. Hey everyone, this is Robert Jackson, and thank you for stumbling across the Station Square podcast. And this is another video interview that I'm doing. This time, I have a special guest in the corner, and this special guest has been in the industry for a very, very long time. They've worked on shows like Rugrats, Darkwing Duck, G.I. Joe, Transformers, Legacy of Kain, and if I list off his credits and resume, we'd be here for like an hour or so. So, ladies and gentlemen, I have with me the lovely, the illustrious Michael Bell sitting with me in the corner. So, yeah, thank you, my good sir, for joining me on this fine morning.
I've never been called lovely, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, not a problem. So, yeah, I guess with my audience out there, they like to get to know a little bit more about you. So, yeah, would you like to share? I mean, I've listed off some of your credits. So, yeah, would you like to shed like at least a little bit more like trip fun facts or just anything that you like to share before we do get started with this episode, I suppose.
Let's just get started with the episode. Then you can ask me the questions you need to ask me. Otherwise, because once I get started, you won't have a chance to speak. So you better start.
All right. So yeah, I guess people out there would love to know how you pretty much got started in showbiz and yeah, how you got started with your career and all of that good jazz. And yeah, how is so I guess a way to phrase it to make it more interesting. So how did this whole idea of acting came to be for you? Was it something that just went off in your head, like, oh yeah, I really want to do this, or something that I've been called to do, or did you have any other career paths that you wanted to go into before you decided to pursue this wacky journey? Before you decided to pursue this type of business? So how did it go for you? What's
Well,
your story?
actually, I always wanted to be an actor from the time I was 5 years old, or entertainer, actor, whatever. I was I'm from Brooklyn, New York, and I used to find myself in the theater in the Lower East 46th Street or the Garden Theater, which is next door, and just saying, I want to do that. I never thought much about anything else. That was really all I wanted to do. And then I went to acting classes and acting school. And then I went to the High School of Performing Arts in Manhattan when it was on 46th Street between Broadway and 6th Avenue. It's since moved, but that was the predication for the movie Fame. Fame, I want to live forever. And that was the school I went to and trained. And I trained for theater. But that doesn't mean you can't do movies. God knows we certainly a lot of actors, many actors who are theater actors and now become well-known film stars, or what we call jobbing actors that work all the time that are really wonderful. And went to Hollywood to be discovered, which was, boy, if I look back at it now, whew, talk about naive. Got out of high school and went to Hollywood to be discovered, and wasn't discovered till I was well into my 30s. Did a lot of jobs, a lot of different jobs, but none of them acting until I finally connected. Did some small theater, and then finally got lucky. And basically, that was it. Lucky.
Nice. So where you're from in Brooklyn, I mean, I know that New York is very like because you got the Broadway stuff, because you have theater, you have like a lot of actors who do a lot of TV down in like in downtown. So it's a very good area where you can pursue acting and you know, you get to explore, discover you know, how it's like down there and pretty much work on your chops.
Well, that's true. I should have stayed in New York, probably, but I might not have had the success that I've had in voiceover or in television. I was fortunate. Eventually, I met a wonderful guy who became my mentor to some degree and said, you know, I was introduced to him through my agent. It was my agent's brother. And he said, yeah, let's come and visit me at Universal. And I went to visit him and he said, let me introduce you to some people. And I read for somebody there, and I got under contract to Universal Studios, which is something I always wanted to do, is to be under contract to a studio. And I wound up working like crazy. Um, that was exciting. That was really exciting for me to be a contracted player and to work on all the shows of that period, Ironsides and Mannix and Streets of San Francisco and, whatever. I just didn't stop working, which was great. And then eventually realized that I probably was going to be doing those kinds of roles for the rest of my life because there wasn't much comedy coming out of Universal. And that's what I wanted to do. And I wanted to do different roles. I didn't want to do the same thing over and over again. And I was playing detectives and, the CIA guys and killers, etc., but not beautifully written or extraordinarily written shows. They were just formula shows, and it was work. But I was going to be doing the same thing over and over. And I said, I got to try something. I got to do something different. And I met somebody who was a marvelous voiceover lady, and we became involved personally. And she said, "You do all these wonderful characters. Let me introduce you to people. You can be doing voiceovers and make a hell of a lot more money, and you don't have to worry about what you look like, and you'll be playing parts that you'll never get an opportunity to do on screen." So I took her advice. She introduced me to an agent, late Bud Davis, who was just fabulous, what agents should be. And he just pushed me, and she took me to meet Mel Blanc, and the rest is history for me anyway. It's not world history, it's my history.
Man, that is awesome. How was it like meeting such a legend in the industry like Mel Blanc?
It was extraordinary. I mean, Mel Blanc, think about it. Today, Mel Blanc, still extraordinary talent, rest his soul. And I'm friends with his son, Noah Blanc, who gave me one of my first breaks working with his dad. And it was mind-boggling. And then working at Hanna-Barbera with Mel on Speed Buggy, and then working with other great talents that I used to listen to when I was a kid, who I listened to on radio. And I listened to Archie Andrews on radio, and then I'd work with the actor who starred as Archie Andrews, and then it just never stopped. I met all these radio talents who I would listen to, who are now doing animation with me at Hanna-Barbera. It was a gift. It was a real gift to me, and I consider myself lucky. I'm sure I was no more talented than somebody else. I just happened to be at the right place at the right time.
Yeah, because Hanna-Barbera, that was pretty much that was the one studio where pretty much it was I'm pretty sure next to Disney, and then later down the line it's Don Bluth. I think from the 70s to the 80s, Hanna-Barbera was like the cream of the crop. I mean, you had a lot of very talented actors. Like there was, of course, Mel. There was Dawes Butler, Don Messick, Paul Frees, June Foray, and all of these people that I really I've listened to as a kid, and I really do believe that they had a large impact on when it like when it comes to the 70s and 80s. I mean, even from if we're talking about the golden age of animation, because of the golden age was a time where animation was really at its at its crucial peak when it comes to the art form of the craft. So yeah, and then the 70s and 80s came around, and Hanna-Barbera was pretty much on top because when you watch Saturday morning television, you just can, there's no way you cannot watch at least one Hanna-Barbera show, because that's just how, you know, very well known they really were. So yeah, and I also wanted to ask you, were there like any like it doesn't have to be specifically voice actors, but were there people in your life who really inspired you or left an influence on you as an actor or just as a person in general?
You know, um, inspired me. I don't know. As an actor, there were actors that I saw in film that I'd say, "Wow, I'd love to be that person." I was a kid, I'd go to movies and I'd say, Wow. I mean, something as simple as the Tarzan movies. Watching an early Tarzan movie, saying, "I would love to do that. I'd love to be Bamba the Jungle Boy." Boy, was that looks like that's fun. I wasn't thinking in terms of acting. I was thinking in terms of having a good time and being in a film. And then eventually seeing an actor like Paul Muni, who nobody in your audience would know, who was an extraordinary actor. And then years later seeing Olivier, and then even more other actors that I had tremendous respect for, and got a chance to work with some of them that I had such great respect for. People that I said, wow, here I am working opposite this person. It's hard for me to believe. And I've since become friends with a great actress, Piper Laurie, and I said to become friends with her through my Screen Actors Guild and from work as a board member. To know her, to know her experiences, her life experiences, her acting experiences, to be a friend. Uh, Again, more gifts. It's an embarrassment of riches.
It's awesome. So yeah, going back to the animated entertainment, because you were one of the prominent actors in the 70s and 80s. So I did some research, and your very first voice role was playing Studs from the Hound Cats. And wanted to ask you, how was it like getting to um, being cast and getting to participate, being involved in your first animated production, like being in your very first voice role? How was that like for you?
That was, I don't know, was that my first? I mean, you would probably, I never researched myself. I thought it was at Hanna-Barbera. I thought I was doing,
Pretty sure it was one of the first.
because I know I did Oliver Twist and the Artful Dodger for Hanna-Barbera.
Okay.
And I had already done a show called The Monkeys on camera. And I know that I know that Davy Jones was up for the role, who is English and who does sing. And and I wound up getting it. I have no idea how they made that huge blunder because I don't sing that well, but I wound up getting the role, and that was a big, really a major haul for me to do that, for them to take a chance with me on that. And then of course Hound Cats. I know everybody was up for Hound Cats because it was really kind of a fun role. They wanted actors that sounded like Phil Silvers, who was a wonderful comic at the time, who I'd worked with eventually. I didn't know how to do that. So I did Don Adams from Get Smart. That was the character voice I used, and I got it. So, all in all, again, I don't know whether it was the luck of the draw or whether somebody said, no, I like what he does, or the fact that I could do other voices. That was the thing, because that led me to Plastic Man with those guys, and Marvel, all the rest of the characters that I wound up doing for Marvel, because I could do other things. Because as an actor in voice, you at that time you owed them three voices. So if you got a lead in an animated series, you'd have to come up with two other characters because you only got paid for one. So you had to provide three characters. So I was, I guess, capable enough and able enough to be able to provide other character voices so that there was enough separation so they didn't have to hire two other actors and spend a lot of money. So that's part of the luck. So there you got it. Though great, everybody loves working. That was a treat.
Yeah. And then soon after that, it was, you had um, you were cast in, projects like the Proud Rider, and then of course you got Speed Buggy, like you were saying earlier, working with Mel Blanc, and then a lot of Scooby Doo related stuff, Super Friends, Superman, Lex Luthor, and yeah, the list just goes on and on and on. Jungle Plastic Man, and yeah, like you've done a lot of work over the years. And then the ball just kept on rolling from there. So yeah, you stayed pretty busy and consistent all throughout the 80s. So I will say, out of all of the shows that you've really worked on, were there any ones that you've done that really stood out to you that you've had the most amount of fun doing, or you just have overall positive memories working on, whether it be with the crew or just you just had a amazing experience working on these fantastic shows that people grew up watching?
I had great fun doing the Smurfs and the
Oh yeah, the Spurs.
Smurfs and the Snorks. A wonderful cast. Um, and every now and then you run into somebody and say, this person's really got a wonderful talent. I hope that fledgling talent moves on. I remember a young girl I was working with said to me when they gave her a voice to do besides her own voice, and she turned to me, she said, how do I do that? I don't know how to do that, because you're expected, as I said, to do a second voice. I said, okay, that's and I explained what it was. It was a narwhal or something. And I said, you go, woo, you just like, she went, okay. I said, good, work on it, work on it. When they got back to her, she wound up doing it. She went, oh, thank you so much. And that was Nancy Cartwright, who went on to obviously great fame, and she could buy and sell me. There's, those are memories. Working with Mel Blanc on Speed Buggy. Wow. Working with that cast, Jonathan Winters and Frank Welker and all the folks that I work with on the Smurfs and the Snorks. It's just a huge treat, and the difference with on-camera actors is that, I've done a great deal of on-camera guest starring roles with well-known actors. The personalities are different in voiceover. You don't have the kind of ego that the on-camera actor has, because we don't care what we look like, and it's they're buddies. They're really friends. It's not as if no one's going to steal it from you, because you got your spot, they got their spot, everybody gets their spot. Nobody steals anything. Whereas on camera, working with the on-camera actors that I work with a number of years, I've found many of them, not all, but many of them were not easy to work with, because it was all about how do I look? Am I beautiful? Can I pull focus from you by doing something else? And it's a whole different world.
I guess that perfectly segues to my next question here. So, I know there's been, talk on because with on camera, it's much, much different than when you're doing voiceover work. So, I know this answer is probably going to be easy, but do you enjoy working on camera or doing voiceover more?
Well, voiceover probably more, but I did enjoy doing Star Trek. I've always wanted to do Star Trek. The pilot was great fun for me to do. It was a total departure from the stuff that I'd usually done. And of course, same thing with Deep Space Nine. Totally different than anything I'd ever done. But in the fun analysis, I'd have to say voiceover work, it was for me was far more rewarding. I had an opportunity to improvise and play, help create a character, as opposed to just looking a certain way and having a lot of makeup on, etc. I think I guess I'd have to say, yeah, VO work. That would be the answer for me.
Yeah. And what are some of the, so this is a fun question that I usually ask for people that I have on my podcast, but what are some of the, I guess, challenges that you encounter when you're doing, well, just in acting in general? It doesn't have to be on camera or just voiceover, but just when you're performing, what are some of the, what are the aspects or some of the stuff that you really find the most fun about performing, and what are some challenges that you encounter that you have to go through along the way? So challenges and the fun parts about performing.
Wow, that's so ubiquitous. That covers it.
The difficult. Yeah, we're going to get into the juicy stuff.
You're in the weeds here. You don't have the time for that. I can tell you that if you work with an actor or an actress that is not giving and gracious, it's very hard. As you know, I guest starred on two of the Three's companies, and played a dancer on one Three's company and a guru on the other. And John was great. John Ritter was great. I found the girls were difficult to work with. They were not easy. I did Charlie's Angels. I was a reoccurring character in Charlie's Angels. I found the actress whose ex-husband I played not easy to work with, because she really didn't wanted me. She wanted a handsome young guy to be her ex-husband, and producer Aaron Spelling said, I think you should I think Michael's a better choice because he looks like an ex-cop. He's got the lived-in face, and she had to go with it, and she wasn't thrilled. So it makes it hard to work in a show when you're not really welcome. In terms of voiceover, that never happened. Everybody loved everybody. We all new people came on. Welcome, big hugs. Hope you have a career out of this. It's a whole different feeling, totally different feeling. Now that was then. Maybe things are different now. It's quite different because I don't do that anymore. So
Hmm. Yeah. So how has the industry changed for the past like 50 plus or so years that you've been working in the business?
well, let me give you an example, a good example. As everybody knows, I did Rugrats. Chucky's dad, Chaz, Angelica's dad, Drew, Grandpa Boris, the old Jewish grandpa, and probably most of the first year, all the visiting characters. Once my two characters were in there, I was given a third character to do. I did all the visiting characters. They just did the retro. They redid the show. They brought it back again this last year, and I was replaced entirely by names, television names. So I think I have to say that that using celebrities for voice work is what changed in the industry because there was a period of time it was just us. We were the celebrity, and I don't even like the word celebrity. We were the leading actors. We were the actors they used. The celebrities were the actors they use now, who are well known. Generally, don't do more than one voice, and they get triple the kind of money we got, and because they're names. So that's how it's changed from my point of view. I may be wrong. I could be just angry, but I'm not. Go ahead.
No worries. No, no, no. I think you've touched upon some a topic that a lot of people do discuss about in the industry where because you have these voiceover artists who bring their favorite characters to life, and people have an attachment for the roles that you've played, and a lot of these other voice actors have played. So when the news breaks out that like oh yeah, so we're doing this reboot or a continuation, and we're not gonna. Some of the actors that you're familiar with, they're gonna be replaced with this big movie star, and then people most of the time don't really take the news kindly because you guys really brought because they really imagine you as the character, and um they have been familiar with these roles, and the actors they have this unique ability and charm that really seems to strike a chord with the audiences. And when the news is when a network says that whenever they have to replace voiceover actors with celebrities, then it's yeah, it's just usually it gets kind of ugly with the fan base. So but then again, it's like something that I've learned along the way. It's pretty much how the business goes. It's sometimes actors can be replaced all the time, and it it's it's pretty hard, and I know that's a tough pill to swallow, but I mean, they do call it show business for a reason. So yeah. Um,
Show business is the shoe business. I was watching a special last night on a marvelous Broadway actress, and it talked about her winning 4 Tonys in a row and still being considered second or third or fourth for the next role in the next major Broadway show. I mean, it's just, it's so strange. I'll never understand it. If you got it and it's good and it works, why change it? Why go in a different direction? It doesn't make any sense. It's because somebody wants to put their brand on it. I think in our case, in terms of VO, they think it'll be more of an attraction if you get a celebrity to to replace the character that has been so successful for 5 years. Rugrats went on for 5 years without a superstar. We went into movies without anybody. Well, we had, I think, yeah, Susan Sarandon played a major role, but all the rest of us were the same. She was the guest star in that, in the Rugrats Go to Paris. but that's rare. It was a new character, so big deal. So you wanted a celebrity fine. Kids don't know from celebrities. The kids know, they just know recognizable voices. Hey, they did that with Transformers. You have no power. You have no control over that. You go with the flow. That's all. Wait for the next job.
I remember that Orson Welles was actually in the Transformers movie, and pretty sure that was one of his final roles before his passing. And he did amazing in that, by the way. I will say that when comes to getting like top class celebrities in a voiceover role, I mean, like I said, or like you said, I mean, if it brings in, like, if it appeals to the networks, if it's a decision, I mean, if it brings more attention to the product, then I guess it can work. But then again, I'm just someone who's just an actor doing voiceover work, and I'm just, working like everybody else. So I don't make the decisions. I'm just brought in for a role and doing my part, and then just call it a day. So, yeah. And going back to the live action stuff real quick. So what would you say, because you said that you did Star Trek, you've also done, you've been acting in shows since the 60s. So I wanted to say, um, like with voiceover work, any shows that you would consider to be some of your absolute favorite experiences working on, whether it be for live action, stage, just, yeah, anything that you've done over the years.
There's so many. They're all my kids. I think probably Chucky's dad, Chaz, the Mother's Day show for Rugrats was an extraordinary experience. Doing Opus in A Wish for Wings That Work for Spielberg. Uh, that was an extraordinary experience for me to work with Berkeley Breathed, who created Opus, the Penguin, and I got a chance to play Opus. That all of that was beautiful. Listen, working at Universal, doing on-camera work, meeting Lana Turner, having Lana Turner, the famous actress, come up to me and say, "Hi, I'm Lana Turner. I was doing The Survivors." And she said, "Who are you?" I said, "I almost forgot my name. I mean, this is a legend. Has come up to me and said, 'Hi, I'm Lana Turner. Who are you?'" And I went, "Michael Bell." I almost forgot to tell her who I was. She said, "I guess I'll see you later." And I said, she said, "Do we have any scenes together?" I said, "I don't think so." She said, "Well, I'll see you later." And I said, "Great." And I thought, Lana Turner. Lana Turner just came over to me, introduced herself to me. Lana Turner, of all people. I mean, that was amazing for me. And there were incidents like that. What can I say? Those were exciting. Meeting Mel Blanc, as I told you, and all those wonderful actors that I used to hear on radio. What an amazing experience. And to work with them, not just to say, "Hi, can I have your autograph?" To work with them, to work opposite them. When I did Rugrats, the movie in Paris, Susan Sarandon was working in a scene in New York. They were doing it in New York. And she said, "Where's the actor that I work with in this whole scene?" They said, "Well, that's Michael Bell. He does the voice of Chess." She said, "Well, where is he?" They said, "Well, he's in Hollywood." "Well, why? Is he working?" They said, "Well, we don't know, but we didn't bring him out here." She said, "Bring him out here. I want to work with the actor." That's what you do. So she brought me out, and I brought my wife and my daughter Ashley and my wife Victoria, both actors. And we went and they watched me work with Susan Sarandon in a booth doing the Rugrats in Paris. That was exciting. That was a gas.
Man, I feel like getting to work with such top class talent, like meeting your favorite people and then just being starstruck by just the fact that you're meeting them in person and getting to work with them. That must have been such a thrilling experience.
It was, absolutely was. And it always is. Even at this point, as I said, meeting Piper Laurie, although we didn't work together, we worked together as board members. I mean, it's Piper Laurie, all-time greats, Academy Award. Good God, how lucky can you get?
So I was also reading that you were in an episode of MASH, which I've actually seen. I've watched as a kid. You were in the episode Souvenirs as Willie Stratton. And I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, because sometimes Wikipedia can be, you know, may not be the most reliable at times, but yeah, I used to watch that show, Match, and getting to watch people like the late David Ogden Stiers and all of these great actors. It was just a really fun show. It was something that I believe my mom, or was it no, it was actually my parents who would watch episodes of TV Land, and that's pretty much how I would um, just get acquainted with the classic 50s, 60s television, because that was pretty much where it was really exploding. The whole television boom that happened after the 40s. I mean, it might have been before that, but it definitely started taking off in the 50s. So, yeah, I just wanted to bring that up because I really loved watching that show when I was really, really young. I haven't seen it in years, but just wanted to bring that up.
Interesting thing. Interesting to know. I tested for the role in MASH opposite Alan Alda for the pilot,
Nice.
and I tested also, and I also they wanted me consider me for a role opposite the Bob Newhart Show, the dentist. The young guy was the dentist. So my agent called me and said, "You're up for both roles. Which one do you want?" If they come to us, because they were talking about contract. I said, wow, I would love to do the Bob Newhart Show because it's a comedy, but then so is MASH, and I'd love to work with Alda, but I'd love to work with Newhart, but I'd love to work with Alda. Oh my God, whichever comes through, I'm fine. And then because I had screen tested. That's when they screen tested you, and I screen tested for MASH, and I was on the same set with Wayne Rogers, and I was watching Wayne Rogers audition. I went, I can do that. I'm better than that. Damn, he brought nothing to it. Boy, I got this. I was so cocky, and I read for it. And they came back and said, yeah, we like Mike, and we're thinking of Mike, and then again back and forth, and then finally they came down. They said, Mike's tall, dark hair, too much like Alan Alda. We just feel there's no yin and yang. It's just we wanted to get, so we went with Wayne because he's blonde and he's okay, whatever. And I'm sure he did a fine job, and I was disappointed. And then Bob Newhart chose this other actor because he'd worked with him in something else, and he wanted to be with someone he was familiar with. So I got neither. So years later, and I hadn't done either show. Years later, a friend of mine calls me and says, I just spoke to the producer of MASH. We were at a ball game together, and Herb Ellis was my buddy, another great voice actor and on-camera actor. And he said, and I had lunch with him. We were at a ball game together, and he said to me, I'm having a hard time finding more leading actors, guest stars for MASH. We got another season to go, and I'm running out of actors. And he said, what about Michael Bell? And the producer said, yeah. Oh, okay, good. Boom, got the script, and now I am guest starring on MASH. That's lucky. Talk about lucky.
Wow. That is actually really cool. Um, so yeah, getting to be a part of Match is like you said, it was just all just luck that just came to your side. So yeah, let's see here. So and you were still working in the 80s for shows that pretty much a lot grew up on. So let's talk about one of your biggest ones, Quacker Jack from Darkwing Duck. So yeah, that was also another show that most people know you for, another well-known role of yours. So tell us about Darkwing and how it was like getting to work with the greats like Jim Cummings, the late Christine Cavanaugh, Terrence, and all of these other great actors that were a part of the show.
Well, don't
Working
forget,
with Disney on that one.
don't forget that Christine played my son in Rugrats, so I knew Christine well.
Oh yeah, Rugrat. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I know Jim very, very well. And I didn't know Dan Castellaneta that well, but I got to meet him.
He was Megafold.
Yeah. So we were auditioning. So we didn't audition. We just were called in to do the role because Jenny McSwain, who's a wonderful director, knew who she was. So I know I wanted. So she brought me in. So when we looked at the script and I saw Cracker Jack and I thought, what am I going to do for his voice? I'm going to try kind of because I teach voice animation and I teach my students plagiarize, don't shade your eyes. That's why God made your eyes. So if there's an actor that has a quality or a tone or a voice, use it for your cartoon character because it might be helpful. It might help you, zero in on something rather than just use a squeeze voice or a high voice or a deep voice. Try a character voice, and there's so many wonderful character actors. Just give it a shot. So I thought I would do Kirk Douglas, who has always a crackling kind of sound like that with his clipped teeth together and his big dimple, which you could hear in his chin. And I thought, that's what I'm going to do for Crackerjack. Except Dan's character spoke before mine did. And that's what Dan did. Dan did that. And I thought, what the hell am I going to do now? He got the voice that I was going to do. I didn't discuss it with him. It's just that it's what we do as voice people. We, pick something. Who am I going to do? Am I going to do Boris Karloff? Am I going to do Edward G. Robinson? Am I going to do Peter Lorre? I said, no, I'm just going to go wacky. I'm going to go crazy and do that. Just sort of nutso character. And I just came out of thin air, and it's playtime, all that stuff. And she bought it. If Ginny had said, try something else, I would have had to try something else. I would have tried to find something else. I might have done Peter Lorre when, it's playtime, whatever. But she bought that, and that was it. And that became the defined character. So that's a little bit of VO lore for whatever.
Nice. So that's the process that went into Quackerjack. I actually was gonna say, because Megavolt, I always wondered, I kind of get the sense of like, he kind of does sound a little like Kirk Douglas, and I actually didn't know that's exactly like what you were gonna do for Quackerjack. And then Dan pretty much took that and he used it for Megavolt. So it's like, okay, so might as well just go in a different direction. And I have to say that the approach that you went with Crackerjack actually worked super well, though. I will say that. And it's a very fun performance because it's like he's how can I describe it? So it's pretty much like it's not. I mean, I know that Quackerjack is supposed to be. I mean, for the show, I know that people say, "Oh, is he based on the Joker?" Well, sort of, but he still is kind of like, because the Joker is more, what's the right word? He's I mean, I will say Quackerjack is insane, but the Joker is kind of like he's a little more theatrical, more like pulled in and more subtle and bombastic, and he's more like somebody that you definitely don't want to meet in a dark alley. Like, he's dark, but Quackerjack is just insane. He's a mastermind who pretty much turned to villainy after his toy company pretty much went out of business. And he pretty much teams up with Megavolt, Negaduck, and let's see who else. Was it Liquidator? Yeah, and all of these other great villains. And yeah, it was just a really fun show. So yeah. And were there any favorite episodes you did that you remember from Darkwing?
I have no memory. I've done so many episodes, and then they brought it back.
It's fair.
They brought it back again recent. I mean, what, 3 years?
Oh yeah, you reprised in DuckTales, if I'm not. Yeah, the DuckTales reboot.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. There was a lot of Johnny Quest, and you were talking about Rugrats and how you working with Christine Cavanaugh, and if I'm not mistaken, another voice actor that I admire was also the director of the show, at least in the later seasons, Charlie Adler. So how was it like getting to work with, Charlie, and getting to be directed by with another phenomenal talent such as him?
Well, don't forget that I was doing Smurfs for a number of years with Charlie.
Oh yeah.
He was introduced as a baby Smurf along with Pat Fraley and Pat Music.
Oh, Pat, another great one.
They were brought in, and as they were new talent, and they were brought in, and they were doing baby Smurfs, whatever it was. And so Charlie was brand new. We became good friends over a period of time. Yeah.
He also got really very big.
Yes. Oh yeah. Charlie wound up doing some more stuff, and I think Chicken and something or other. And Charlie was big, and I think Pat Fraley did. Everybody began to work a lot because there was a lot of stuff to be done long before they brought in celebrities, which aced us a lot of us out of a lot of work. Yeah. And then I wound up directing. I directed Kid Video, which was a short-lived series, but was great. And then directed Peter Pan for Fox with Jason Marsden.
So you've also done your fair share of video game work, including, like I mentioned earlier, there's the Legacy of Kane, Ratchet and Clank, and also Metal Gear Solid 3 as Fear, which I never knew until just a few months ago, which is amazing. So do you also find video game voiceover work to be fun?
That's more taxing. It's still fun because
Oh
it's
yeah.
work, but it's much more taxing. To do a whole show and go, I am the fear. You strain yourself, and there's a lot of screaming. And in video work and in voiceover work and video work, you have to die several different ways. There's a lot of screaming. There's a lot of gurgling. There's a lot of getting stabbed. There's a lot of choking on your own blood. So listen, it's not as hard as a lot of other jobs. Trust me. I ain't complaining.
Uh, and for commercial promo and narration, I know that it's pretty much, I know that it's also a lot of work, but in that sense, you do have to engage in the viewers, and you have to, because pretty much for voiceover work, for some, it can be considered a little bit more trickier because you have to convey to the audience with just your voice. And that certainly is the case with when you're doing narration and commercialist, because you have to engage in the viewer's attention with only your voice, and you're pretty much telling a story. It's not, doing a silly voice or anything like that. It's you pretty much are the storyteller, and you're engaging with the audience to make sure they are just as intrigued in the story as much as you are. And that's pretty much an important lesson for anybody looking to get into this. Not voices, it's performance, acting, first and foremost. I'm pretty sure everybody, a lot of people do know this.
First and foremost, you must have some acting chops. I tell everybody to train before you get into it. Take an improvisation class. There's a wonderful group in Los Angeles called the Groundlings, which my wife is one of the original coordinators for. She was one of the starters of the Groundlings, and my daughter's in the Groundlings now in the class, and hopefully will be a Groundling soon. But this is really important to train, to develop characters, to develop your skills as a voice person as well as an on-camera actor. If anybody's interested in doing voiceovers, I have a class I teach on is it iTunes? Yeah, it's called Michael Bell Voice Animation Class. It's free. It's about an hour and a half, and you watch me train some young neophyte kids who were in the Groundlings at the time, or in the class at the time. 1 or 2, I think, are now Groundlings, official Groundlings. How to create character voices for the purpose of a teaching experiment, to see if anybody wants to learn how to do it. It's sort of like a primer. It's an hour and a half to tell you how to reach and what to go for, and how to plan for it, and how to, again, train. And I think it's really imperative that you study acting, because it's not a matter of just doing, oh boy, here's a puppet voice. I mean, anybody can do that. Anybody can raise their voice level a little lower. If you don't have a character behind it, and if it's not at least semi-believable, you're going to fail. Because even the really great auditions, I've seen some great auditions that don't make it for one reason or another, and they were wonderful auditions, but they'll continue to audition. They'll continue to get out there until they get a job. But if it's not good, if it's just, hey, I did a voice, that ain't going to work. So go to iTunes, Michael Bell Voice Animation Class, and or Michael Bell Voice Animation Seminar, whatever. It'll pop up, and you'll see me teaching voice animation. And it's a good class. It's free, as I said.
Yeah, I'll definitely look into it. Excuse me. So since we're almost running out of time, I will also talk about like, yeah, for stage, because I know that you had actually you actually opened your own, I guess, your own theater show, which is the West End Playhouse. And you were in shows like The Ladies of the Camellias, and you were there from until 1988. So transitioning into the director's chair. Did you always wanted to be a director, or how did the transition? Did it seem flawlessly from you going as an actor to a director?
I've always been kind of bossy. I felt that since I'd done so much animation that, yeah, I was more than qualified to direct. And when they asked me to do Peter Pan, it was, wow, what a treat to do 80 shows. It's the top talent, voiceover talent, and on-camera talent. It was extraordinary, and it won all kinds of awards and Emmys, etc. And so I was fortunate. And then I wound up directing kid video, as I said, for Saban Productions. Again, a big treat because I got a chance to cast as well as direct. I would love to have continued, just wasn't meant to be. But that was, I loved it. Yeah, I love directing, especially animation. I really love doing that. I love working with actors, and they're just wonderful. They're willing to work. I love it.
You also directed the LeBrons, if I'm not mistaken.
I was asked to work with LeBron James a number of years ago. He did. It's a webisode. It's a webisode. You can get it on the internet. It's called The LeBrons, Lebrons, and it's his history, his life, and it's an animation. And they asked me to work with him, and I'm not a sports person. So when I met with the producer, and he said, "I'd love you to do this," and I said, "What is it about?" And he said, "Well, it's LeBron James," and I said, "I don't know anything about rap," and he went, "Rap? LeBron James isn't a rapper." And I went, "What is he?" And he said, he's a basketball player. I said, "Well, it's the second thing I don't know anything about, but I'll do it." And I did it, and we worked together, and he was a peach. He was wonderful.
Nice. And I know that he was in the new Space Jam movie, if I'm not yeah, like the new Space Jam, which I actually haven't seen, but I know that, yeah, the advertisements were everywhere last year. So yeah, it's really cool that you actually got to work with LeBron years before his Space Jam. So that's a that's pretty cool. Yeah, basketball player, and yeah. So let's see. I know for the Groundlings, I know that Lorraine Newman was one of the original founding members, and she's also very amazing, doing a lot of voiceover work on camera, commercials, and yeah, you also see it's pretty much this industry is just full of actors who are like at least in the voiceover realm of things. You don't really need a lot of egos, and there's not like a lot of like, okay, so what can I do to, you know, um, there's not like a lot of backstabbing. Let's just say that. And people are just super nice, very welcoming, supportive, like you said before. And yeah, as an actor, my voice actor myself, I can say that the testament rings very much true, even to this very day. So yeah, it's just a lot of these great people that you've seen in like in shows that you've watched, and getting to work with them is just honestly, it just is a big dream come true, all things considered. Um, so I think a little fun fact that I didn't know about you. So back in the 90s, correct me if I'm wrong. So you've kind of invented like some sort of drain that is a recycling device for shower and sink water in the home. Yeah, you've kind of invented a product. Yeah, tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, Melanie Charoff, who played my wife Minka in Rugrats, we were sitting and talking, and she said, she said, "It's a thing really terrible," just during a rehearsal. And she said, "I run the water in my shower, and boy, by the time it turns hot, I've wasted a lot of water." Or the same thing in the sink. I'd run the water, and until it heats up, there's a lot of water gets lost. Can't that go somewhere? Can't that go to gray water? And I said, "Well, let me think about it." And I thought about it, and I called at that time my brother-in-law, who's an inventor, and I gave him the idea, and we talked about it and discussed it. We came up with a concept, a prototype, and then Melanie and I, worked on it, and then we presented it at a show, and everybody got excited about it. And the way it worked was a drain that you turn, and whatever water that came down, it could go off to a separate area, and then it would go out to your garden or wherever. and it wouldn't be a waste because water that's used is called black water. So when you go to the bathroom, you're flushing white water that became black water. Why can't we send the water from our shower to our toilet? It's a perfectly good water. And well, the big plumbers association in California fought it. And I mean, just small minds, tiny minds. And we didn't have the kind of money to continue to pour into it. So it just we patented it, did the whole thing, and then just let it go. And some people were interested, and then it was just a long haul. But yeah, we invented gray water before anybody was really, and how to turn gray water into white water to some degree for flushing purposes, so we wouldn't be wasting water. Say, yes, that's something I did that had nothing to do with acting.
Yeah. So as far as the union goes, I mean, by the way, that is amazing that, you've made the invention water running, because I know that it definitely does save money when it comes to recycling and reusing water. That's I'm learning some new things. So going to the union stuff real quick, because you you served on the board of directors for the LA local of SAG-AFTRA for a couple of years. So what can people expect to if they want to work union for like cartoons, video games, and et cetera, et cetera? What are some of the, I guess, what's something that you want to teach to actors, if what to expect for and what to prepare? Because I know there was like if I'm not mistaken, there was like some strike that happened in 2012. But what can you expect to see from actors? You want to tell actors before they start signing up for the union and wanting to work for cartoons.
Well, if you want to work for cartoons, don't even think about the union for the moment. Yeah, you want to get into the union, obviously. But what you want to do is prepare yourself for the job. The union will come around. You'll eventually get into the union if you get that job. And if the director really likes you and says, you're the only one for this, you really work for this, they'll get you in the union. They'll find a way of getting you into the union. And the final analysis, don't forget there's union dues. You got to pay a certain amount of money per year. So you better make some money. So you got to pay that money. And having a union card is not really enough. It works, but it's not really enough. So I think it's really imperative that you work on dialects. There's a demand for dialects. I mean, the Brits have it knocked out. They have the American dialect locked in. Americans have a difficult time with something as simple as a Brit dialect or a Russian dialect or a German dialect or a Cockney, let's say, beyond just a standard British, but a Cockney dialect or a Scottish dialect. There's a lot of mid-earth series that are going on, and there's a lot of mid-earth medieval video games. And if you can't pull that out of the box, forget it. So you better study it, train, go to the Google sites that help you with dialects and learn one dialect a month. You can do one dialect a month. Then by the time the year is up, you've got 12 dialects. Just imagine. Or when you watch television, listen. If you're watching an Irish show, just imitate them. As I said, work at it. You just got to work at it. Plagiarize. Don't shade your eyes. That's why God made your eyes. Go plagiarize.
What are some of the benefits or disadvantages upon joining the union, would you say?
Well, to me, there shouldn't be a disadvantage. You should join the union if you get that opportunity. If you want to think of a downside, you can't take any work that comes along. Otherwise, you can get drummed out of the union if it's non-union. And unfortunately, in many cases, the non-union job provides more money for you than the union job. But the union job sees to it that you get your pension paid for. So the non-union job, if it's going to offer you $10,000 to do a show or $20,000 or $30,000 to do a show, but it's not going to be union, they're not going to pay for your pension. But you may say, I need that 30,000. That's a lot of money. So you'll do it. So it just remains, look, there are well-known actors that are doing non-union. I can tell you, and I won't do it here, but there are famous actors that have done non-union. South Park is non-union. I don't know if you're aware of that. And you've seen some big names doing voices on South Park. It's non-union. And I'm sorry, but I'm a union guy. But I can't get in anybody's pocket. If there's somebody that has to pay the bills, and have to pay for their apartment, pay food bills or whatever it is, and they're offered umpteen thousands of dollars to do a non-union show, I can't tell you not to do it, especially if you're union. But if you're non-union and you haven't joined the union yet, do whatever work that comes down for you, because you have no obligation to a union you're not part of. Just get work, get training, and after a while you go, okay, now I'm ready to see you. You know, I've learned, I've trained myself. Now I can do a union job.
Sweet. So, yeah, that leaves, that kind of does leave you with a lot to think about at one shot. So yeah, nice that I'm learning just from this interview alone. So yeah, yeah, and like you mentioned earlier, because you have to get as much training and expertise as much as you can, whether it be for, I know it's tricky right now because we're still in a pandemic. Like I know that theater and film on camera work, it's still being affected by COVID, but like when you're doing online stuff for voiceover, it hasn't really been affected. I mean, I will say that voiceover is kind of the one area in the business that hasn't been really been affected. I mean, to some extent because people have been recording from home and they've been moving into their homes. They've had home studios, but there's been a lot more in demand for remote work. But now we're starting to go into the phase where sometimes you might be brought into the studio, sometimes it's remote, but either or, there's no denying that COVID has really impacted the industry in more ways than one. So how would you say that this whole pandemic has really affected, I guess, your work ethic or just your overall lifestyle?
Well, not only about lifestyle, but it certainly has affected the union. It has affected the industry tremendously.
Yeah,
Absolutely hard, hard. It'd be very hard to work with somebody in terms of you're doing a love scene. How do you do that with a mask on? But of course, I'm a proponent of, this is political. I'm a proponent of getting vaccinated. I'm a proponent of getting a booster. That's me. And if you don't like wearing a mask, maybe you like wearing a ventilator. That's my feeling. I say take care of yourself, takes care of everybody else, and let's get back to work. Uh, very, very simple. Now I have done not too long ago, I do ADR work, which is an additional dialogue replacement work. And I did a film called Luca. I think it was for DreamWorks or Pixar, one of the two. I think maybe DreamWorks. And I had to go to a studio because I didn't do it from the house. And yeah, it's a separate studio. It's a studio, separate rooms. The director is on camera. The director was in Italy. So, it's the business goes on. Acting, there's still commercials are being made all the time. They just make sure everybody on that set has had their vaccination and their booster. And if you don't like it, you ain't gonna work, pal. That's simple.
just please get vaccinated. Please wear a mask. It's really that simple, folks. I'm just going to keep on preaching this until, if we eventually get out of this, just please, just do it. Just do it.
Yeah,
So,
I said,
yeah,
you don't like wearing a mask? Try a ventilator.
yeah, that's going to be fun. But yeah. Anyways, as an animal rights activist,
Oh, wow.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
we're going to talk about that. So, yeah. So, as somebody who has been a part of this, you've been committed into joining that kind of field. I wanted to ask you, yeah, is there like a lot of work that really does go into it? Because, like I said, I love animals, but I am not I don't really know like the ins and outs or the nitty gritty of, the amount of work it takes to become like for somebody who wants to support animal rights. So how would you describe it?
Well, you'd have to really be interested in animals. And, animals are part of our life. At least they're part of my life. I got 4 cats, had 5. I lost the cat I just absolutely adored. It was my pal. Um,
I'm so
so
sorry.
I got 4 cats. I've got 3 dogs. My daughter has a dog she just adopted from the San Bernardino shelter. I also worked on behalf of coyotes. protecting coyotes. I don't believe that they should be decimated where they have been over the years. I don't believe wildlife should be decimated. I think the Mustangs have a right to their life. The BLM, the Bureau of Land Management, are scumbags as far as I'm concerned. They round them up, run them off cliffs, shoot them from the sky. The shooting, killing of wolves to protect farms or to protect ranchers is bullshit. I think all of that is horrendous. I think they are part of our life. They are part of our environment, and it only stops working. It only goes badly when we interfere, when we poke our finger in it. It's just, that's the truth. Very simple. So I will work to my dying day for wildlife, for domestic pets. People, spay and neuter. Spay and neuter your animals. You don't have to do it in early months. You know, if they're indoors, keep your cats indoors. Otherwise, you're going to lose them because cats free roam. Don't let your dogs roam. You know, keep them on a leash and love them like your kids, like you love your kids. And they're your pals. They're angels. They're angels in fur, as far as I'm concerned. And that includes snakes. That includes fish. That includes, look, I'm vegan. I don't eat animals. I don't wear them. This is not real leather. I don't wear leather. I just don't believe in it. And I'm managed fine without it.
Nice. Cool. So it's really nice that you're pretty much an inspiration to actor Steve Guttenberg, who cited you as an inspiration to become that he became an actor. So yeah, it's good to know that, you know, you've had people who've inspired you to be an actor, and now you're passing the torch on to others as an inspiration to them. So it's just nice how it all just comes around together. It just the dots connect very seamlessly. So for your family, I know you guys have been staying safe in the midst of this chaotic time. So I wanted to ask, how did you actually where did you meet your wife, Victoria? Because that's something that I don't think I'd really known about. So how did you guys first meet again?
I was
Yeah.
putting on a show for a while. I was putting on a show for animals, to rescue animals, to keep them out of laboratories,
Okay.
to keep animals out of laboratories at the Santa Monica Civic.
Nice. How is the perfect segue?
Yeah, and I asked Lily Tomlin and a number of people that I knew if they would perform in the show. And we had it at the Santa Monica Civic. And then I had met Victoria. I'd seen her a couple of times. I thought she was way too beautiful to be interested in me, or would I be interested in her? Because I always like women with a sense of humor. And I found most of the beautiful women I dated never really had a sense of humor or could make me laugh. And I needed to I always liked women that made me laugh. And I found out later on she's not only beautiful and talented, she made me laugh. So that was fabulous. And she was head of the comedy groups in the show at the Santa Monica Civic. That was the beginning. And then eventually we opened our own theater, the West End Playhouse, and produced plays there, and had our child, Ashley, who became a marvelous, marvelous actress. She was in a film called The Last Exorcism, which literally put Lionsgate on the map. They were on their way out, and it made millions for Lionsgate. So she was the star of The Last Exorcism. Did a couple after that, did some more TV. And then she produced and directed, from the animal activist side, a wonderful, wonderful film called Love and Bananas. And I think it's on Netflix, or it was a huge hit. It was in contention for an Academy Award. And she produced and directed it, and pretty much wrote it, and traveled to Thailand to do it, about the rescue of a 70-year-old partially blind elephant and her from a ghastly trekking camp, and her escape and 500-mile trek to a sanctuary. It's a gorgeous film, received extraordinary reviews. I think like 96 from Rotten Tomatoes and Rolling Stones. I mean, everybody said it's a brilliant film, and that's my kid. So we're a family of activists and a family of actors and producers and directors.
Oh, so yeah. For the future, are there any stuff that you like to discuss about, like anything that you're working on, any plans, or just it's just kind of all, I mean, at least that is not under NDA at the moment, that you like to discuss of what we can expect to see from Mr. Michael Bell?
There's no NDA. I really don't. I don't really don't know what. I audition for enough stuff, and if something comes up, I'll be glad to talk about it. But in the meantime, nothing is happening. There's a lot of young talented Turks out there, and there's a lot of people out there pushing for the business that I'm in. And hey, I'm 83. They're gonna say, well, can he get through a series? If they give him a series, is he gonna survive the first year? Yeah, I will. I sure will. But who am I going to convince of that? So I do my stuff, read my roles, and if something comes through in the next interview I get, I'll tell somebody about it if I'm allowed to tell about it. But there's nothing. As I said, I do a lot of ADR, a lot of dubbing for several companies. So, and that's nothing to brag about because it's just dubbing other actors. What can I tell you?
ADR, that's an area of work. That's a whole like, because I know that ADR dubbing, having to match the timing and the lip flaps. I know that it could be, I mean, unless if you have a musical background, I know that it can be pretty tricky if you're not used to it. So I really have a lot of respect for people who do this sort of stuff for a living, because I know that it's also not easy. So, and having to match, it's not just the fact that you're doing a voice. Like I said, if you're dubbing over an actor, it's about, studying the mannerisms, the inflections, and a lot of homework that goes into it. So, mad respect for people who do this stuff frequently.
We did
Um,
that. We did that for Voltron, Defender of the Universe. We had to
yeah, Voltron
get our voices in there.
slipped from my mind earlier.
Yeah, that was a biggie. That was, I think it was myself, Peter Cullen, the late Jack
Great
Angel,
Peter. Oh
uh,
yeah.
and BJ Ward. That was great fun, and you had to do it on timing. You had to time your voice to fit that flap. It was really interesting.
Sorry about that. But anyways, yeah, Jack Angel and all. Like I said, just everybody was just really amazing at what they did back in the day, and it was just, yeah, it's just a time to be alive when it comes for Saturday morning TV. So, to wrap this up, since you mentioned that you do animation VO coaching or teaching, so for teaching and directing, because I know you've had experience as a director. So, how did the whole idea of wanting to teach classes to up and coming actors, where did that idea come from? Was it something that you always wanted to do, or it just kind of was like, oh, okay, I guess I'm going to do this now? Or was it just something that just happened one day and you just kept up at it?
Well, I had my own theater. I built my own theater out in the valley with my wife Victoria before we were married, called the West End Playhouse. And I thought, well, let's utilize our days off. I said, I'll start teaching voice animation. So I had a lot of young people come to me that said some of them were working, but not a lot. Some of them said I need to change my approach to it, like people like Katsu C, who's quite famous now, Pat Music, and let's see, Lauren Lester, Bob Bergen, Bob Bergen. Those are all
Oh
my
yeah.
students. Cam Clark was one of my students. Neil Ross was one of my students. And
Oh,
I
that's
have I
awesome.
have letters of accreditation from them saying, "Wow, what a change!" Russi Taylor, the late Russi Taylor, who did
Oh
all
man.
the Disney stuff, they all came to me and said, just I want to stretch, I want to go in a different direction, or I want to get work, one of the two. And I was fortunate that I was able to impart what wisdom I had as an actor. I don't just teach funny voices; I teach them how to approach the voices as an actor. So I use my theater, the West End Playhouse, to do that. Besides putting on plays, I wound up teaching at the same time. So that's how that came about. And of course, ultimately, I wound up for the past 10 years teaching Japanese students flying in from Osaka and other areas of Japan. And I teach them voice animation because they want to know how to create characters for voice anime. So I sometimes will teach anywhere from 40 to 90 students at a time with an interpreter and how to create character voices.
It's amazing. So, yeah, you still teach from time to time, correct?
Still do. I don't teach groups unless it's on Zoom, and
Okay.
it's got to be at least 12 people. And I really like to teach people that have had some acting background. I don't care if it's school, as long as they have some acting background. I don't have the patience to really work that hard to teach somebody that hasn't had any background at all.
Okay. So yeah, I guess this kind of wraps up this interview here. So where can people expect to find your classes and or do you just announce them, or how does it work when people get notified when you're teaching new classes?
Well, people can find my website. I've got a website, and they can always reach out to me. And Lynn Ann Zager, who's a marvelous voice lady, will sometimes post that I have a class coming up, and people can see it on the Facebook page. But in the meantime, as I said, go to YouTube, not iTunes. Go to YouTube, and it's
Oh,
Bell Voice Animation, Michael Bell Voice Animation class. That's the beginning. And if that spurs you on and you get excited, I guess they can reach out to me. And if I get 12 people saying, yes, I'm committed, and yes, I've got the money to take the class, hey, let's do it.
right. So let's see, to close this out, any last piece of advice that you have for anybody who wants to do this? I know you've already given out some pretty solid advice thus far. So any last closing bit of words of just your wisdom of what you've learned from all your years of performing that you'd like to pass on to new students or new actors who want to give this whole thing a shot, this
Well,
crazy career thing a
learn,
go?
above all, learn your craft. Don't think because you can do, because I've had so many people say to me, oh, I do a wonderful voice. Or oh, somebody said I had a great voice. And the great voice is just the beginning. That's just the instrument that you have. If you don't know how to play it, what good is the Stradivarius violin if you don't know how to play it? You have to keep it in the closet. No, you got to learn. You got to learn your craft. You got to learn how to create a character, how to build a character, and that's why I say, if you're in LA, there's the Groundlings that have a wonderful class. I don't know what New York has. I don't know what some of the bigger cities have. I'm sure there are improv groups that are willing to train. And in small markets, i.e., the Midwest or Texas, I have no idea what's going on there. But there must be acting schools or improv classes around. Improv is really important. It gets the brain working. It's it's a whole learning procedure, making you think on your feet, and that's why Melissa McCarthy is so famous, and Kristen Wiig, and as you mentioned, there are other people that came from the Groundlings because they have that improv background. So many of them wound up on Saturday Night Live because they have the improv background and they've learned to create characters, and they're not just doing the voice, as it were. So that I think that's imperative.
Cool. And that's pretty much the acting style that you teach to your students when you're teaching your classes.
They get scripts. Everybody gets a script, and they've got to come with the following week with a character voice to match the characters that I've given them. And it ain't easy. It ain't easy. And if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. Seems like everybody's doing it, but nah, not everybody's successful. There's very few people that are successful at it. So, but as I say, just keep working at it. Keep working. Look at, what does grandma sound like? What did grandpa sound like? What does your best friend sound like? What is their speech pattern? Different laughter for different characters, because all the characters have to have different laughter. You can do separation. So you got to listen. Watch Jerry Springer and start imitating the people on that show, and that's the beginning.
Wow, Jerry Springer, that's a pretty good way to learn from the best. That's somebody that is very interesting to, good source of resource to study and look into. But yeah, okay. Definitely look into Jerry Springer. That's pretty fine. So yeah, thank you so much for stopping by today. And yeah, would you like to say a few closing words before we officially conclude this podcast?
Well, thank you so much. I thank you, Robert, for the interview. This was cool. And if there's anybody out there that are interested in seeing me in any of the cons coming up,
Oh yeah, conventions coming up. Yeah, probably talk about that too.
go to the CelebWorks website. It's CelebWorx. I should tell you where Michael Bell's going to be for the coming year. I know I'm going to Augusta, Georgia. I'm going to Sioux City, Iowa, or something. I haven't even looked at it, but I'm going places once we can start flying. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Michael. And yeah, this has been a huge pleasure getting to chat with you and having you on this show. So yeah, for anybody who wants to keep in touch, my social media will be provided, in the description by the time this goes up. On on the YouTube video, social media, I'm on Twitter, SoundCloud, anything else that you can find me on. Updates about voiceover work and podcasts and whatnot will be on my feed. So stay tuned for that. And with that said, thank you for tuning into this episode of Station Square. This is Mr. Robert signing out for the day. And until next time, everyone, goodbye, take care, and stay safe out there.
Bye.
We can do this. Bye bye.